Ahoy Super Squad, and welcome to the very first episode of Joy Charts, this time focusing on the original Paper Mario. Because this is the inaugural installment of this new series, you're probably and rightfully thinking to yourself, yo Super, what the heck is a Joy Chart? While I think it'll become clear as we fill this one out, let me hit you guys with a little backstory just to make sure we're all on the same page. I promise guys, that's the only paper pun I'm making in the entire video. Joy charts are a visual representation of how much joy a game brings at all of its major points, while also having tier list benefits where parts of a game can be compared to one another. They've been something my buddies and I have been doing for years when discussing specific titles, and they're weirdly effective at communicating how we feel about a particular game. Joy charts also function as mini retrospectives. The ability to show a game's high and low points, when the game hits those parts, and display how major sections of a game compare to each other all at once while describing why each part got a certain score is a nice way of recapping a game in its entirety. Here's an example of what a completed Joy chart looks like, and I'll leave it on screen for a few seconds, but note, it's only an example and not a real rating for a game. So with all that preamble out of the way, let's make our Joy chart for the original Paper Mario. We can go ahead and put the prologue in chapters 1 through 8 as our x-axis, because that's the easiest way to separate all of Paper Mario's major sections. Our y-axis serves as the ratings we're going to give to each chapter. I debated how to represent scores for this series, and I think I've landed on something that's kinda neat. Originally, I just had perfection at the top, average in the middle, and broken at the bottom. But those labels are boring and in desperate need of a little creative spice. Instead of using generic labels like that, I'd like to try using a theme for every new Joy Chart episode. For Paper Mario's Joy Chart, let's use ice cream flavors as the y-axis. This was requested by my girlfriend Slice, whose love for this dairy treat runs deeper than the 4 oceans combined. Unfortunately, she's not gonna get her way entirely because we disagree on the best flavor, so I'm gonna go ahead and rename the top score from Perfection to Peanut Butter Cup, because it is undoubtedly the best ice cream flavor. Peanut Butter Cup ice cream has everything. A satisfying crunch, a mixture of 3 different flavors with peanut butter, chocolate, and traditionally vanilla, and sometimes it even has Reese's Peanut Butter Cups or a similar candy. But it also excels in versatility because you can go with a ton of different ice cream flavors as the base. I usually go vanilla, but it is oh so good with chocolate too. Slice wanted the top spot to go to chocolate, and that's also one of my top choices. But in the end, my love for Peanut Butter Cup ice cream won out. Vanilla ice cream takes the middle spot, replacing the average label. This is no surprise to anyone since vanilla ice cream is literally something people draw comparisons from when they're describing average things, so it fits right at home here. No one hates vanilla ice cream, but its best use is as a base for something better. It's inoffensive at worst and moderately delightful at best, but it does have potential. And that brings us to the bottom of our Joy chart with the broken rating, and there's just one obvious choice here: butterscotch. You guys will be happy to know that Slice and I's relationship must be thriving right now because we both easily agreed this is the worst ice cream flavor. It has absolutely 0 redeeming qualities and makes me wonder if I would actually eat butterscotch flavored ice cream if it was offered. And I gotta say no. No, I would not like to eat butterscotch ice cream given the chance. And with that, our Joy chart is ready to be filled in. Real quick note guys, I will absolutely need your help for deciding themes as the rating for future Joy charts, so please drop a comment with an idea, and it might just make it into a future video. Alright, with our template completed, let's get started with the prologue. I'm gonna go ahead and put it right at the vanilla ice cream level, because it couldn't be more average if it tried. Paper Mario's prologue does provide a few highlights. The opening at Peach's castle does some nice world building. It introduces a lot of the game's main mechanics, it shows off Junior Troopa as a rival character, and it even gives players their first partner character with Goombario. But there's one major problem: action commands aren't available. Action commands are the lifeblood of Paper Mario's main battle system, and because players won't have access to them right away, it makes battles at this part feel almost scripted, leading to a weaker impression of the system that isn't properly reflective of it. Handing over the item that allows Mario to perform action commands would also give some extra screen time to my boy Twink, who's, the only reason anyone would ever need to play Paper Mario. So yeah, missed opportunity. The prologue feels like a standard RPG intro, and while that's not necessarily bad, there's just not enough here to be anything but average. The good news is that I think the prologue is the weakest part of Paper Mario, and that is going to be remedied immediately by Chapter 1, which I'm going to put noticeably higher. We're already moving in the right upwards direction, and that's because Chapter 1 has a lot of things that I really, really like. First things first, the Koopa Bros are an absolute treasure, and they're a terrific group of characters that set the tone from the first second they're on screen. A hybrid Power Rangers and Ninja Turtle parody will always get points with me, and they're just so entertaining whenever they show up. I love how Paper Mario gives players 2 new partners before the first major boss fight, and both Kooper and Bombette are great additions, especially Bombette. Koopa Bros Fortress is a great starter dungeon for players new to the game with an interesting layout and mechanics, and it's made even better by the cutscenes that feature the Koopa Bros setting traps for Mario. But there is one main reason that unfortunately prevents Chapter 1 from ascending to even greater heights: the fuzzy shell stealing sequence. That set piece is one of the most aggravating things in the entire game, and it's just no fun even though it's thematically appropriate. It lasts way too long, and it starts the chapter on the wrong foot. But hey, it is salvaged and strengthened by both new partners and the Koopa Bros, ultimately resulting in a far above average chapter. Chapter 2 is probably where I'm going to get a lot of disagreement from a lot of people, but I'm going to go ahead and place it as just slightly above average and lower than Chapter 1. I'm definitely a bit biased here because I tend not to be a fan of desert themes in video games, and while that's admittedly petty, it is one of the main reasons why this chapter never stuck with me. Dry Desert's grid-like layout can be interesting to navigate at times when overworld obstacles have to be used to obtain stuff elsewhere in the desert, but I always found it overly large and tedious as a whole. Dry Ruins is a decent dungeon that is far more complex than Koopa Bros Fortress, and I appreciate that, but there's something about it that just makes it seem like it lingers for far too long. I feel the same way about Toot and Koopa as the boss. There's nothing objectively wrong with him at all. I'm just not gonna be that guy that's lining up outside the ruins to get his autograph on my cherished poster so I can frame it on my wall. I'll give Chapter 2 credit for introducing Parakarry, and Mount Rugged is a pretty neat area too. I really couldn't tell you what exactly it is about this chapter that just doesn't resonate with me, but even though I do think it's objectively as good as Chapter 1, it is an unfortunate drop in quality for me and will go lower on my joy chart. Chapter 3 is interesting because there are some things about it that I really, really love, and some things that I feel are clear missed opportunities. So let's put it at the same spot as Chapter 1 and regain that upwards momentum. There's one thing I need to put on the record immediately. Lady Bow is undoubtedly the best partner Mario gets in the entire game, and she's overall one of the best Paper Mario characters in the series. So Chapter 3 gets a lot of brownie points for that and that alone. Forever Forest and Boo's Mansion are wonderfully themed and designed, but that's actually where I think Chapter 3 unfortunately peaks, because I think Gusty Gulch and Tubba Blubba's Castle are much weaker. Tubba Blubba's Castle is a fine dungeon, and I love how it's literally an oversized house fit for a giant person, but there are some things about it that just never gelled with me. I never understood and still can't understand why there is only one enemy type throughout the entirety of this place, and every other part of the game has much more enemy variety. The Sentinels that kick you out if they catch you can get real tedious if they manage to catch Mario a few times, and it just adds a lot of otherwise unneeded length to the dungeon. Tubba Blubba is a cool boss, and I like how you have to fight his heart that's controlling his empty body. But the battle is such a missed opportunity because the heart's attack pattern is so obvious. It really feels like the game designers are doing everything possible to bash your head in to guarantee that you know that Bow's ability will make Mario invisible to avoid attacks. I'm still willing to call this a great chapter though. I just wish it was a little bit more balanced between the start and end, and I think some ideas could have been thought out a little more thoroughly. Shy Guys Toy Box and Chapter 4 are gonna follow suit with Chapter 3 and are creating a flat line of above average gameplay. I wrestled with this one a little bit and I debated putting it a tick mark higher, but I ultimately couldn't get there and think the game flatlines a bit here even though it's all still above average. I think the concept of Chapter 4 is great with the dungeon being tucked away within Toad Town, and the toy box itself is a wonderfully unique setting filled with some very memorable moments and characters. Unfortunately though, this chapter has a lot of backtracking, because players are required to enter and leave the toy box several times to return stolen items to the residents of Toad Town. Shy Guys Toy Box would be pretty short without these fetch sequences, and that's probably why the designers added them in the first place, but they're just not very exciting. It's not all bad though, and I don't want to leave an overly negative impression. Gourmet Guy is a hilarious character that makes his backtrack quest very worthwhile, and General Guy is an excellent boss fight both thematically and mechanically. Watt is probably the most unique partner Mario teams up with during the adventure, and she's fantastic, so that 1-2 punch of getting Lady Bow and Watt in back-to-back chapters makes this chapter something I always look forward to. Our joy chart is going to see a healthy uptick with Mount Lava Lava in Chapter 5, because I'm going to go ahead and place this chapter higher than all the previous ones we've gone over so far. This is where Paper Mario decides it's big boy time, because Mount Lava Lava is where the game really starts to approach that masterpiece level. First off, I love the big whale guy in Toad Town's harbor. Whales are kind of a thing for me, and one that ferries you across the ocean is only going to help Chapter 5 swim its way to the top of the chart. The whole island that the volcano is on is a Yoshi's Island throwback, and it's so wonderfully done with the music and theming. I love how involved the search for the Fearsome Five is, and the actual volcano itself is a terrific dungeon filled with interesting set pieces, difficult encounters, and a great aesthetic. Lava Piranha is my favorite boss fight in the game, and that neat little revival trick that the designers pulled is one of the coolest moments in the entire adventure. Colorado's involvement is great too, and this is the only chapter that has a fight with Junior Troopa that I actually enjoy, so it gets a lot of credit for that alone because otherwise I despise him. I could gush about this chapter even more, but there is one reason it doesn't hit that Peanut Butter Cup masterpiece level. Sushi joins the team. I never cared for her at all, and she's my least favorite partner in the game, but I will give her some credit because her abilities in battle and the overworld are very worthwhile. I just don't like her personality as the overbearing mother, and it always felt tonally off for someone who signs up for this adventure, so it does take Chapter 5 down a tick and prevents it from being perfect. Almost every game has its ups and downs, and Paper Mario is unfortunately no exception, so our joy chart is going to take its second dive when it comes to Chapter 6. But it'll be okay because, spoiler alert, everything else after that is going to be rated much higher. Chapter 6 is the inverse of Chapter 2 to me. It's objectively not so great, but there's a lot of things I like in it. Let's get the negatives out of the way first. I don't like how players have to get the 4 magical seeds from previous locales just to enter Flower Fields, because it can add hours of padding for players who don't know where the seeds are if they missed any up to this point. The design of Flower Fields itself is also built for padding with a highly repetitive structure. Mario has to go through a bunch of narrow hallways that are all perfectly straight lines, talk to an NPC, retrieve something for that NPC, and then go back through those hallways again a total of 7 times. This structure never changes, and the game even makes players do one of the hallway loops twice. But you know, it's not all gray clouds, because I really like the environment and world building aspects on display here. It's cool how Flower Fields feels like a world within the world of the Mushroom Kingdom, and all of the NPCs here are charming and interesting with their own unique personalities and designs. Flower Fields is also the home of Spike, the last partner Mario obtains on the adventure. He's neat because he starts as an enemy who changes his allegiance, and he's one of my favorite teammates. It is regrettable that Chapter 6 finishes off with the Huff and Puff boss fight, because for me, it's the worst in the game, hands down. I hate this fight and it leaves a sour taste in my mouth, and it makes me want to get out of Flower Fields as fast as I possibly can. Chapter 7, on the other hand, is where Paper Mario decides it's done being a great game and decides to elevate itself to new heights. Everyone, it's time to award our first Peanut Butter Cup score. Chapter 7 has everything: a wonderful snowy setting, an arduous mountain climb that's lengthy but interesting, a dungeon that requires thoughtfulness because of how it's built around a unique central mechanic, and a boss fight that's legitimately threatening and surprisingly difficult. And I could talk more about all of those great things, but you know, there's one set piece in Chapter 7 that's the best one in the entire game, and that's going to get all my attention here: the Mayor Penguin murder mystery. Mario playing detective after getting accused of cold-blooded murder is such an out-of-the-box scenario filled with so many creative touches, and it gives Paper Mario a completely different tone from anything else that players have experienced up to this point. I've always kind of thought that this is where the designers figured out Paper Mario's identity, because it feels like the spirit of this set piece carries over into the Thousand Year Door and future titles with wacky scenarios and over-the-top writing. A warm, special shout out to the group of penguins who say they don't socialize with murderers when I try to talk to them. I just want to make friends with the locals while I'm out here freezing in this new town, but hey, that's cool, I get it, don't trust the outsider, right? Everything about Chapter 7, Shiver City, Starborn Valley, Shiver Mountain, and the Crystal Palace culminates into a fantastic package and also creates the peak in our joy chart. I said before that there are no more declines after Chapter 6, so you know what's coming for Chapter 8 and Bowser's Castle. Another top score and delicious scoop of peanut butter cup ice cream. The Mayor Penguin murder mystery is my favorite set piece in the game, but Chapter 8 stands tall as the best singular chapter in the adventure. Bowser's Castle is a fantastic final dungeon, and it's something that I would describe as epic. That word gets thrown around a lot to describe great things, and because it's been thrown around so much, I feel like it's been devalued a little bit, but not here. Bowser's Castle is truly epic. I love how lengthy it is, and every partner's ability is required to get through it, leading to a dungeon that has a far larger scope than anything else in the journey. I really enjoy the increased difficulty of the enemies here. The game is determined to give players a real challenge and test their mastery of the battle system before it's willing to concede victory to them. The music that plays here is the best in the entire game, and the track wonderfully layers multiple levels of instrumentation as players venture deeper into the castle. Even when Mario leaves Bowser's Castle and moves on to the Peach's Castle part, the game still manages to do a terrific job of building up tension with a completely empty and eerie version of a place that once hosted everyone to start the adventure. The climax of the game culminates in not one, but two showdowns with Bowser himself, and that last encounter with the King of Koopas is something special. Bowser has such a variety of attacks that other bosses can't come close to matching, and it's just a great challenge to overcome. Plus, Twink ends up saving the day anyways, so how could Chapter 8 be anything less than a masterpiece? And with all that, let's flip back and take a look at our finalized joy chart to see how well Paper Mario is designed as a whole, and to see how different chapters compare to one another. This is why I love joy charts, because in this quick snapshot, it's so easy to tell that every single point of Paper Mario provides players with an above average experience while also being able to see where it excels and where it falters. For me, the second half of Paper Mario, starting with Chapter 5 and Mount Lava Lava, is where the game starts to look mad cute, and I admire how the game saves its best content for the end, which is something that a lot of titles struggle to do. Chapters 2 and 6 are the low points for me outside of the prologue, but they're still good overall and above average, and the rest of the game falls somewhere in between. I knew going in I didn't have to worry about it, but guys, I am so glad that Paper Mario is definitely not butterscotch flavored ice cream. I hope you guys like this new style of rating a game. Hit me up in the comments to let me know what you think of my Paper Mario joy chart, and tell me how you'd rank all the chapters. Come on, Twink, send us to the outro. Thank you so much for watching one of my videos. It really means a lot to me that you're here. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel so we can help the Super Squad grow. I like to make content on game design and Nintendo topics, but I do other stuff too, like tier lists, personal stories, and joy charts. I'm on some social media platforms if you'd like to get to know me better, and the links to them will be in the video description. My name is Super, and like me, I hope you'll have the chance to be super today too.